He came in the dead of night when the world was asleep and the streets were silent. A whisper, then a scream. The silence shattered by the terror he brought. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, etched his name in blood across the soul of California. His reign of terror was unlike anything the state had ever seen. From 1984 to 1985, he was the embodiment of terror. The city of Los Angeles, already a sprawling metropolis, became a hunting ground for his malevolent desires. Homes were no longer sanctuaries. Sleep offered no escape. The very places people felt safest became the stages for his horrific acts. The devil, it seemed, had come to the Golden State. His presence was felt in every shadow, every dark corner. Ramirez's crimes weren't just about death. They were about defilement. He sought to corrupt and destroy the very essence of safety and peace, about shattering the illusion of safety. His calling card? Pentagrams. Symbols of his allegiance to darkness, left as a grim reminder of his presence, left on walls, on bodies, a promise, a threat. Each mark a testament to his twisted beliefs and his desire to instill fear. He wasn't just a killer, he was a harbinger of chaos, a disciple of darkness. He was a disciple of darkness. His eyes, cold and devoid of humanity, reflected the abyss within. His victims were as varied as his methods. Old, young, men, women. No one was safe. The randomness of his attacks added to the pervasive fear. He bound, he tortured, he killed. His cruelty knew no bounds, and his methods were as unpredictable as they were brutal. Each act more brutal than the last. The escalation of his violence left a trail of devastation and heartbreak. The news ran red with the details. Headlines screamed of his latest atrocities, and the media frenzy only fueled the public's fear. Fear, like a virus, spread through the state. It infected every household, every community. No one knew who would be next. The uncertainty was paralyzing, and the sense of dread was omnipresent. The city of angels held its breath. The vibrant city, known for its dreams and aspirations, was now cloaked in fear, waiting, watching, praying for the nightmare to end. The collective hope was that justice would prevail and the terror would cease. But every night the shadows seemed to whisper his name, the Night Stalker. His legacy of fear lingered, a dark cloud over the city. El Paso, Texas, a desolate landscape mirroring the emptiness within a young Richard Ramirez. Born in 1960, his childhood was a breeding ground for darkness. Violence was a constant companion. His father, Julian, ruled the household with an iron fist. Beatings were commonplace, rage, a language Richard learned early. Salvation seemed to come in the form of his older cousin, Miguel. A Vietnam War veteran, Miguel spun tales of horror and heroism, but his stories were laced with a dark undercurrent. He shared photos of Vietnamese women he claimed to have tortured and murdered. For Richard, these weren't warnings, they were lessons. As Richard grew, so did his fascination with the macabre. He dabbled in drugs, his mind seeking escape from the bleak reality of his existence. He drifted further from the light, drawn to the shadows that whispered promises of power and control. The seeds of evil had been sown, and in the fertile ground of Richard's troubled mind they were about to take root. Petty theft, vandalism. These were the early signs of a troubled soul, a young man teetering on the edge of darkness. Richard Ramirez's early forays into crime were small acts of rebellion. They were cries for attention, desperate attempts to carve out an identity in a world that seemed indifferent to his existence. A cry for help lost in the din of his chaotic life. His home was a battleground, a place where love was scarce and violence was abundant. The turmoil at home mirrored the storm brewing within him, but with each transgression, the darkness within him deepened. It was as if every petty crime, every act of defiance was feeding a beast inside him, a beast that grew stronger and more insatiable with each passing day. He found a perverse thrill in taking what wasn't his, in leaving his mark on a world that had shown him little kindness. The rush of adrenaline, the sense of power, it was intoxicating. It was a way to assert control in a life that felt uncontrollable. Drugs became his constant companions. They were an escape, a way to numb the pain and silence the chaos in his mind. Marijuana, LSD, PCP. Each substance offered a different kind of oblivion, a different way to detach from reality. Each hit chipped away at the fragile barriers of his mind, blurring the lines between right and wrong. The drugs distorted his perception, making the unreal seem real and the real seem insignificant. He embraced the darkness, finding solace in its cold embrace. Satanism became his obsession. It was more than a belief, it was a way to channel his inner demons, to give form to the chaos within. Not a religion, but a twisted justification for the evil he already harbored. It gave him a sense of purpose, a dark mission to fulfill. His physical appearance became a reflection of his decaying soul. The once innocent boy was now a man consumed by darkness. He neglected his hygiene, his body becoming a walking testament to the chaos within. His rotting teeth, his unkempt hair, his disheveled clothes, all were outward signs of the inner turmoil. His piercing eyes all served as a warning. They were windows to a soul that had been consumed by darkness, eyes that no longer saw the world as others did, a harbinger of the darkness that was about to be unleashed. The transformation was complete. Richard Ramirez was gone. In his place stood a new entity, one that thrived in the shadows. In his place stood the Nightstalker, a name that would soon become synonymous with terror, a figure that would haunt the nights of countless victims, a predator ready to claim the night as his own. The city would become his hunting ground, and the darkness his ally. The Nightstalker was born, and the world would never be the same. June 28, 1984, Los Angeles. Jenny Vincow, 79, lay sleeping in her bed. She wouldn't wake again. Her murder, as brutal as it was senseless, marked the beginning of a reign of terror that would grip the city in fear. The Nightstalker had arrived. His modus operandi was chaos. He broke into homes, his victims chosen seemingly at random. He raped, he stabbed, he shot. Each attack more brazen than the last. He moved like a phantom, striking in different neighborhoods, leaving no trace but terror in his wake. The media, hungry for a story, dubbed him the walk-in killer for his chilling ability to enter homes undetected. But as the body count rose, so too did the nickname that would forever be etched in the annals of crime, the Nightstalker. Fear became a palpable presence in the city. People bolted their doors, bought guns, slept with the lights on. The Nightstalker wasn't just a killer, he was a boogeyman come to life, and no one knew who would be next. Section 5, Hunting the Boogeyman. The pressure mounted on law enforcement with each passing day. The LAPD, working in conjunction with the FBI, assembled a task force dedicated to catching the Nightstalker. Leads were scarce, dead ends plentiful. The killer was a ghost, his motives as elusive as his next target. The investigation was a race against time. Every news report, every whispered rumor only served to embolden the Nightstalker. He reveled in the fear, drawing power from the chaos he had unleashed. He taunted the police, leaving satanic symbols at crime scenes as if challenging them to catch him. The city held its breath. But for every answer the police found, more questions arose. Who was this monster? What drove him to commit such unspeakable acts? And most importantly, how could they stop him before he claimed his next victim? Section 6. Justice at last? August 31st, 1985. The city of Los Angeles had been gripped by fear for months, as a shadowy figure known as the Nightstalker prowled the streets, leaving a trail of terror and death in his wake. The reign of terror came to an abrupt end. The city, which had been living in constant fear, could finally breathe a sigh of relief. The streets that once seemed haunted by an invisible menace were now filled with a cautious sense of hope. After a citywide manhunt and a stroke of luck, Richard Ramirez was apprehended. The police had been working tirelessly, piecing together clues and following leads, but it was ultimately the vigilance of the community that led to his capture. His capture, however, was far from ordinary. It was a moment of high drama, filled with tension and raw emotion. The city had been on edge for so long that the arrest felt like a climactic scene in a gripping novel. It was a scene straight out of a Hollywood thriller, the kind of moment that would be hard to believe if it weren't true. The chase, the confrontation, the eventual takedown, it all played out like a scripted drama. A group of East Los Angeles residents, recognizing Ramirez from his widely circulated mugshot, chased him down and subdued him, delivering their own brand of vigilante justice. These were ordinary people, driven by a collective desire to protect their community. The image of Ramirez, battered and bruised, plastered across newspapers the next day, brought a collective sigh of relief to a city on edge. It was a powerful image, symbolizing the end of a nightmare and the beginning of a healing process. The trial was a media circus. Reporters from all over the country descended upon the courtroom, eager to capture every moment of the proceedings. The public's fascination with Ramirez only grew as the trial unfolded. Ramirez, now a figure of morbid fascination, played the role of the devil's disciple to perfection. His demeanor in court was chilling, as he seemed to embrace his infamy and the dark persona that had been crafted around him. He flashed satanic symbols, smiled at the cameras, and seemed to revel in the attention. It was as if he was performing for an audience, feeding off the fear and curiosity that surrounded him. But despite his attempts to disrupt the proceedings, justice was served. The courtroom, filled with tension and anticipation, finally heard the words they had been waiting for. On September 20th, 1989, Richard Ramirez was found guilty on 43 counts, including 13 counts of murder. The verdict was a culmination of years of hard work by law enforcement and the judicial system. He was sentenced to death. The sentence was a reflection of the gravity of his crimes and the impact they had on the community. It was a moment of closure for many, though the scars of his actions would remain. The nightmare was finally over, or so it seemed. The city of Los Angeles, forever changed by the events, began the slow process of healing, knowing that justice had been served, but also aware that the memories of the Nightstalker would linger for years to come. Section 7. Behind Bars in the Shadows. Death row at San Quentin State Prison became Richard Ramirez's new domain, but even behind bars, his notoriety followed him. He received fan mail, marriage proposals, and even married one of his devotees, Doreen Leoy, in 1996. His time in prison did little to quell the darkness within. He remained unrepentant, often boasting about his crimes and his allegiance to Satan. He was linked to unsolved murders, his shadow stretching far beyond the walls of his cell. Despite his conviction and sentence, Richard Ramirez continued to cast a long shadow. His crimes had left an indelible mark on the psyche of California, a chilling reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places. Section 8. Legacy of Fear. Richard Ramirez, the Nightstalker, died on June 7, 2013, at the age of 53. His death from complications of lymphoma brought little closure to the families of his victims. Their pain, their loss, remained as raw as ever. Ramirez's legacy is one of fear, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can reside in the human heart. His crimes, as brutal as they were senseless, forced a city, a nation, to confront the monsters that lurk in the shadows. The Nightstalker may be gone, but the terror he inflicted lives on. His story serves as a chilling reminder that evil can wear many faces, and that sometimes the monsters we fear most are the ones who walk among us.